So I didn't want to introduce you because your roster, your journey in the industry is quite wide and interesting. So maybe for people, if they're not aware of you, what do you do day to day?
So yeah, Lydia Laws. Lydia Laws PR is the company. LLPR is what I work under. I do PR for artists, events, and labels. Clients include Sasha, Blondish, Last Night on Earth, Matador, Elliot Adamson. So it's a bit of a mix of different levels of artists and stuff. And then I also work on sustainability campaigns. So Blondish's Bye Bye Plastic, kind of eco movement, which is something else that I've started like kind of branching into as well. So like sustainability campaigns as well.
So yeah, we'll dive into PR, and then I think we'll have some time for the eco side of things as well later. So
sounds good.
I think to start, it'd be interesting to actually ask, what is PR in a nutshell?
It's actually a really hard question to answer because I feel like the role of PR is changing so much over the years. But kind of the very basic answer to that is PR is getting an artist noticed, getting like your music noticed, putting you out there to the public, basically, is the kind of basic description of PR. And then that kind of branches into more, you know, like the way that people kind of perceive you, like the personality that you're putting out there, you know, everything kind of that's visible, really. So like, you know, a lot of what I do now also kind of almost kind of verges towards like the management side of things, because there might be some artists obviously aren't at the point yet where they want a manager, so it's more like a publicist can then kind of help them with certain things, like, you know, their press picks, that's quite a big one. Generally kind of maybe a little bit about socials, so it kind of now is like branching out in different areas. Yeah.
And would you say there's a difference between marketing and PR, or is it interconnected?
Yeah, so they both kind of are side by side quite a lot, but I would say PR is where you're basically, for me, it's like PR is me contacting kind of outside companies or people and getting them to cover an artist. Whereas marketing is where you're kind of using the platforms you've already got to then reach out to fans that you've already got. And then obviously marketing then comes with a bit of a budget as well, like on it, kind of extra to that. So yeah.
So with PR, is there a certain time when you should start? Or as an artist, do you think you should wait for a press agent to approach you, or is there things you can already do right now before you're an established artist to start getting heard? Yeah,
so there's so many different points when it could be a good time to get PR, basically. The kind of main thing, I think it's good for you to kind of go out and find a publicist to a certain point. You know, maybe you've got a really strong release coming out that you're really proud of and you've worked really hard to get on this label. That's a perfect time to have PR because you want to shout about it. Maybe you've got some really strong gigs coming up. You know, there's a few like really good UK gigs or something. So you kind of think, I don't want these to go under the radar. I kind of want to get some people down and see like, what can I do? So either if you've got some great releases coming up or like one really strong release, or if you've got like a run of gigs, that's when it's kind of time to start thinking, okay, I might want PR. And also actually, when you're starting out, you might kind of want to change your sound a little bit. So you might start out in one kind of sound. Like quite a lot recently, I've got clients where they come to me and they're like, right, actually, I want to totally change the sound that I am. So I've been releasing on these labels and getting PR for them, but now I want to be a totally different sound. So then you're kind of having to almost like build them back up again from, so basically be sure that I think when you are getting PR, it's around releases that you really want to shout about, because obviously once there's press out there about you, which is all still really great, it just means that people are going to associate you with that sound for quite a long time. Do you know what I mean?
And
so, yeah.
Building the contacts that you've got with everyone from like RA to all the individual blogs and magazines, do they have a real like taste for things that are specific to them? So say like RA, when you approach them, do they already have in mind what they want, or do you kind of bring stories to them, inspire them, and then they take that on board?
That's a really good question. I think that's changed quite a lot. So certain media will obviously have certain kind of artist favorites or certain things they want to cover. And RA is always the one where you take someone on and they're like, I want to get on RA. And it's like, please just like, you know, it's going to take some time, or like you might not be the right sound. I think it's good to kind of have an idea in your head already of where you're going to fit. But yeah, now I think more than ever, there's so many artists, there's so much great music, and there's so many great personalities out there that you kind of need to cut through the noise with editors. So if you can go to an editor with an idea and basically be like, here's like a really cool story idea, like this artist is really interested in this, I want to take you on the road and do this, or come up with some really cool concepts around it, then you're more likely to get a positive response than if you're just like, come and do an interview without any kind of basis behind it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'd like to talk about actionable tips on how people can do PR as well as approach you. But first, I think it'd be interesting we had a podcast a while ago and you mentioned how it's important for artists to know where they sit in a market, and how can they understand that before moving forward. And obviously they want to know the sound and want to make sure that's the sound they want to follow. But how can they see where they fit within the industry?
I think because knowing where you fit in the market is literally the most important thing for me. When I'm taking an artist on, that's what I want to know. I want to know if they know where they want to be. I think to find that out, I guess it's like looking at other people's career progressions as well, and kind of thinking, you know, like you know, maybe like you can see what Patrick Topping's done, or you can see what, you know, Annie Mac's done, or like, you know, obviously I'm choosing massive artists there, but have an idea of where, like what kind of career progression you want to follow, like what you really, really want to achieve. Like, it could be quite a good idea to have an idea, maybe write down like, where do you want to be in 10 years? Like what kind of achievements do you want to have? Do you want to have a label? Do you want to have an event brand? What do you want to be doing? See what other artists are doing. And obviously you've got your own sound, but you know, there's going to be other artists who have potentially had similar career paths to you. So it's quite a good idea to work out where you are via those artists as well. That can be quite helpful.
Okay. So PR in a nutshell, would you say it's kind of you having your artist brand and story known in the industry, so when a release comes up and you approach a certain editor, they not only love the music, they understand you as a personality, as a brand too?
Yeah.
Or is it just the music?
No, it's everything. I think, and that's another thing that is developing more and more, like the more personality you can bring to your music and to your kind of identity as an artist, the better. It didn't used to be as much of a thing, to be honest. And now I think, especially with social media and stuff, it's just everything is so visible, and it's just so important to put out that kind of best version of yourself and the person that you want people to see you as. So, and I think a lot of blogs and stuff and journalists are really keen to kind of get a bit deeper with an artist and past the music and kind of what you're actually interested in aside from that, what are your passions. You know, like with Blondish, it's like sustainability. I've got an artist called Squire who used to be a Formula One like champion. So just those sort of things kind of give you an extra layer. So even if it's something, it also helps as well, because then if you're like paying a publicist to be on like a retainer with them, and there's like a gap in between releases, or there's a quiet gig period or something, then they could be going out and saying, oh, do you know such and such, he's like a massive cheese fan and he goes to like cheese museums and he does this and and like, or you know, he makes his own cider or something. Like if there's some sort of cool hobby that you've got or some sort of interest, then it's really good to kind of include that and make that part of the identity.
And do you think that's important for artists to actually show that personality side, not just through PR, but through social media of, okay, there's some personalities on social media like Fisher that are very extrovert, very show and everything. But do you think it's important to actually not only promote your music through all your channels, but show a real piece of you, whether it is you make cheese, whether it is you love pancakes, that kind of aspect of things?
Just to put that out to the room. I think that's really important. I think not to kind of go on too much to the social media thing, although I think that does cross over to PR quite a lot now as well. Like, you know, someone like Patrick Topping does his own socials and kind of he chooses, so he's interacting with his fans all the time and he's putting out kind of, and he's always very kind of Geordie in his posts. So like part of his identity is the fact that he's just like this Geordie lad who's just kind of made it and worked really hard, but he's just kind of suddenly made it and he still doesn't really get how. And that just totally works for him, and it makes him like, he's so grounded, and it makes it a really good way to kind of identify with him. So yeah, I think it's something important to be putting out there. Obviously, if you don't have like some sort of wacky interest or something, that doesn't matter, because like I said, Patrick, it's just like he's put his personality out there and it's worked really well. And
that underdog thing, we as Brits seem to just love underdogs,
yeah,
don't we?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay, so tips for PR. So let's first start off with doing PR yourself. Maybe if you haven't got much budget, maybe if you're only starting out and you're looking to just start building the connections, what can people do? So say they've got a track finished, it's going to be coming out in 3 weeks' time.
Yeah.
What would you recommend they could do on their own to help in the PR campaign?
Okay, so we've got 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Or what would you recommend?
Like 6, 7 in a dream world. But in my job, it's literally like, I've got this release coming out in 10 days. Can you get me like a mix mag review? And it's like, no, I cannot, because the mag was literally printed like 2 months ago. Yeah, so if you've got like 3-4 weeks or something, so obviously the label is releasing your track or your EP or whatever. To be honest, like the label is going to be so busy, they're going to be doing so many other releases, depending on obviously their schedule. It might be like every 3 weeks, every 4 weeks, might be longer than that, but they are going to be focused on like the overall picture of like the whole year or the whole quarter that they're working on. So you kind of can't rely too much on their support. Like it's great if they can support you, but that you need to kind of just focus on what you can do for your release, basically, yeah. So if you can't afford to have PR to do like a campaign, some kind of key things you can do. Well, I would first off check with the label if they do actually have PR, and be like, have you actually got anyone representing you? And don't be kind of, if they have, don't be scared to kind of like be like, oh, like, can I speak to them? You know, can we connect? Like, here's some info about me. Like, give them some helpful information so they can actually help push you as well as the label. And then there's loads of little things you can do. Like, so a lot of blogs actually still have contacts on their website. Or you can reach out obviously through Facebook and stuff. Like, don't be shy to promote your own music. There's actually quite a lot of sites like Inverted Audio, right? They often don't actually take many submissions from like publicists and stuff. They much prefer getting like music sent to them from the artist who's actually like, oh, like, this is my new track. Like, and they actually will support that a lot more, I found, especially over the last like year or so. And there'll be other sites like that. And so, yeah, so don't be kind of, you know, shy on the whole contact hunting. As long as you're kind of polite and like reasonable with people, like people will help you out. And do a bit of digging yourself, obviously. Like LinkedIn is always another good one to find contacts. When you're getting in touch with the journalists or the media, you know, make it really simple and easy for them, you know, like a link to the music, like downloadable. I can see Graham from Data Transmission nodding in the audience. So it's always just a key point. Yeah, just make it really easy for them to actually listen to music. They haven't got loads of time. They're getting so many submissions all the time. So just like a simple link to the music, a little kind of elevator pitch about yourself, a download if you're up for that, if that's okay. I know some people are quite precious with the music. Release date, yeah. And also some ideas, like me and Graham have been talking about this recently, like, you know, if you're going to approach media, have some ideas yourself for how you can, like, how they can publicize your music. You know, whether it's like, we'll go back to that whole identity thing, like, you know, maybe there's something that makes you stand out. Maybe you can offer like a top tips feature for like a DJ starting out in some certain field, or, you know, that sort of thing. Try and come up with out of the box ideas yourself, because if you're taking that to an editor who's really busy, they might have like 20 seconds to quickly kind of like click on the track and then be like, I quite like this actually. And then if you've provided them with an actual idea for an article, they're going to be so much more likely to cover it than if they have to think, right, well, now I need to find someone to write the questions, or I need to do this, or I need to do some kind of digging into them. So yeah, basically come up with your own ideas. Don't be shy about hunting for contacts and kind of put the time in. And then social media obviously plays into this quite a lot as well. You know, you can obviously things like Beatport charts, and then you can do things like maybe little in the studio videos on your stories and on just like on your main feed and stuff like that. which you can then kind of tag all the relevant like products or, you know, the gear that you're using and all that sort of stuff in as well. So that's quite cool to push everything. Yeah.
So what would you say it's really good to like focus on that exchange of value, making the job easy for the editor? What would you recommend doing a press release, or would just as simple as a paragraph, kind of like an elevator pitch with a downloadable link and the release date, would that be enough, or would that help the editor even more?
If you can write a press release, yeah, that would definitely help you. There's also a lot of writers, freelance writers, who could help you with that. So if you can't afford a full campaign, like PR campaign, you could get like a journalist could write a press release for you if that's really something. If you find describing your own music really difficult and you can't do it, or if you're just not a big writer, that's totally fine. I think having a press release does help, because there are a lot of blogs that still just will kind of publish the press release, which I always take into account when I'm writing one, because it has to kind of be newsworthy and like sound kind of vibrant enough for people to actually be interested. So yeah, if you could have a press release, then that would be great. Yeah, but I think the key bit as well is the bit about you as an artist, especially if you're starting out, because otherwise it's like, here's this great music, but we don't know anything about the person behind the music. So
okay. And what do you expect in terms of replies? Do you get a reply instantly and say, yeah, I'm getting featured, or do you follow up 73 times, or what's the score with that?
My like golden rule, which I've told you before, is the three email rule. So like, you email someone, they don't come back to you, give it 2 more times and then just drop it, because there's nothing worse than when I used to be a journalist myself before I moved into PR, and there's nothing worse than people hounding you. But to be fair, I was actually really respectful, and I would reply saying no whenever most of the time I would say. But normally, yeah, I would give it 3 times, because you don't want to be bugging someone. If they really want to cover your music, they're going to come back to you the first time. They might miss it. They might miss the first email because they're traveling or whatever. If they don't come back to you the second time, then try a third one just for the crack. But you kind of then just know to like leave it. Because also like, you don't want to be associate your name with like a no all the time as well. So if you're kind of always pushing for this thing, and then they're having to actually keep coming back to you and be like, no, like just, yeah, it's just better that way, because then they might cover the next release that you send their way. And if you've bugged them with like 1,000 emails, then they're going to just be like, no, blacklist. So yeah, that's what I would say.
So most of the audience here are artists, but there is someone who has a record label too. Okay. How does the record label side of things differ than artist PR? Is it much different?
Yeah, so I guess with the label side of things, so I do PR for Last Night on Earth, Sasha's label, and I guess for me, label PR is quite a tricky one, because obviously depending on how regular the release schedule is, you know, with Sasha's it's like every 3 weeks, so that's quite a fast turnaround time. But whenever you're working on like record label PR, the main thing is like obviously getting visibility for the label overall. So that might be through pushing key releases, it might be through getting a little bit of press for every single release. So you could kind of look at like your schedule for the next 12 months and be like, okay, these are like the 3 really big releases that are coming out, or like these really kind of are like, these identify our label, like these are really the really special ones. And then obviously the other music's great, but these are what we're going to focus our kind of money or our time on. Or you could kind of think, okay, I want like a general kind of visibility. I just generally want some visibility on the label. So I'll kind of, you know, either whether you're doing it yourself or you're paying someone, kind of have like a kind of little bit of like a PR light sort of campaign to kind of mean that there's always something visible for that EP, which some labels like to do as well, because then they feel like it's fair, like a kind of fairer thing to do for every artist who's on the label. So I guess it just depends what you kind of want to achieve with a label as well, and how regular your releases are.
Yeah, okay, that's great. And I think it'd be great to just kind of go over them. So if you are releasing, if you want to do PR yourself, first things first, if you're releasing on a label, speak to the label, find out if someone's doing press, build that connection, create that connection, have a good conversation, let them know what's coming, send them the track, send them all that information. If you are going to be doing it yourself, if that's not there, give yourself at least 3 weeks to send certain blogs an email with all that in. would you recommend sending that same email to loads of blogs, or how does that work?
Yeah, so another good point actually with that, when you were saying that, I made me remember if you get connected with the label's publicist, like there'll be times when I work with labels where I know that the music is ready, but we haven't received the masters yet because it's being mastered by someone else who hasn't bothered to kind of get around to it or is too busy. So it's really helpful if the artist can send me the music directly, because all I need is a pre-master to be pitching stuff. And if I'm kind of sitting around like waiting for the masters that don't come in until like 10 days beforehand, then I've missed out on really good time for pitching stuff. So that's why it's quite good to be proactive with that, you know, get in touch with the label. If there is a publicist, send them the music yourself, because they might still be sitting around kind of waiting for it, and then they can get their job started sooner. What was the...
Yeah, so say we've got a press release,
Oh, yeah. When do you send it out? Yeah. Okay, so you've got your press release, you've got your music and everything. I would send personalized emails to people, just kind of being like, oh, you know, elevator pitch, here's my track, here's the PR, like everything kind of like tied up in a little bow, like a few weeks before. And then whether they've replied or not, then I would kind of send out a little kind of MailChimp or like a, you know, if you don't want to have a platform like that and you just want to do like a BCC or something on the day of release with like an out now and then with a stream, because there's quite a lot of blogs that will cover it, but they won't cover it until release day. So if they've kind of missed it the first time around when you've emailed them, then they might pick it up the second time and say, okay, it's actually out now. I can include a stream, because if there's no music to listen to, then people aren't really going to be as receptive. But it's good to get in there early, those few weeks before, and see if you can line up features or kind of introducing artist features and that sort of stuff. But yeah, then do like an out now mailer or a few emails, which could be like a BCC.
And do you have a limit of how many blogs you send it to? Like say with tracks, when you send it to a label, they want exclusivity. Are blogs and websites and magazines similar to that, or?
No, so if you're just sending your music out when it's out, for like when on the day it's released or something, like there's no exclusivity. If you're contacting people to offer them a premiere, that's something where obviously that is an exclusive thing. So you're basically offering them the track for about 24 hours is the normal kind of exclusivity. So, but a couple of days is kind of ideal. It just depends on the blog, so you can always ask them. But yeah, it's not the same as when you're kind of getting music signed. So you can kind of, the more the merrier with regards to who you're sending it out to. Yeah.
It's gone so moody in here since all the lights gone. So blue.
I don't know it.
I don't know. So yeah, I think it'd be interesting now to touch upon actually someone might have got a bit of a budget to work with the publicist. What can they, it's a hard like rule of thumb for how much it costs, but for someone who's like an emerging talent, what can they expect to be paying for at the minimum for a release campaign?
Oh God, that's a really difficult question. I don't know.
How does it work? If someone approaches you after this and is like, I want you to be my publicist, how does that relationship work?
Oh God. Okay. Yeah, the fees one is really difficult because it really depends. You know, if you go to one person, like myself, a boutique single person company, then obviously that's going to be different to if you go to like a big corporate company where there's a lot of overheads and a lot of this. But then at the same time, if it's one person, they're doing all the work themselves, as opposed to if you go to a big company where you might be not all the time, occasionally might be palmed off on like an intern or like an assistant. So the fees one, to be honest, it comes down to how much time you want them to put in, really, and how much work it's going to be. So if it's quite a high maintenance but kind of emerging talent, then, you know, if it is an emerging artist, then it's going to take more time to do PR. It is going to be harder work. So you kind of take that into account because you're kind of pushing to be heard. And then it also depends on how much time like you want like from your publicist sort of thing as well. So it's a conversation that you would have with them. And to be honest, for me, like I'll be quite open about it. Like, you know, what's your budget? Like what do you... Yeah, so if someone came up and they're like, right, I want you to be my publicist, it's like, okay, so obviously the key things like where do you want to sit in the market? Where do you feel like you already do sit? What do you actually want to achieve with PR? Because a lot of people don't really quite know. So I think with PR, like, it's really good for you to have an idea of the media that you actually want to be in. So I would kind of always recommend, if you can set aside like 20 minutes a day to just like flick through all the different kind of key blogs and stuff, key websites about music, you know, the ones that are featuring your favorite artists or artists that you kind of see a similar progression, you would kind of want to, you know, replicate what they're doing to a certain point in the kind of level, so that you're actually aware of like where you want to be placed, because it's really helpful, and it's a really good sign for me if someone's like, okay, I really want a publicist, I've got like this really good release coming up, it really means something to me, I want to get this like out there to everyone, I would really like to be featured in these blogs, and you know, they've kind of done a bit of work themselves that makes them stand out. Because I still get emails now from people who are like, oh, you know, really want PR, but they literally don't send me a SoundCloud link to listen to their music. I don't have any social links or anything. And I'm like, you need to give all that. So yeah, I don't know if I've really answered your question there.
No, I think it has. And do you ever find yourself with like emerging talent where you kind of want to invest in them by giving them some extra time because you build that working relationship and you can see that they're going to become like a commercial success or successful? 100%.
So I worked with Elliot Adamson for about a year where I didn't actually charge him anything, because I mean, that's another thing as well, like kind of be aware of like your hometown and like what is kind of around you. Like Elliot is doing so well at the moment, and he released like 3 albums over the course of 4 months last year because he's insane. And that was really fun for me because it was like, yeah, I'm dropping an album in 24 hours. So can we start actually doing a campaign now? I was like, yeah, great. But yeah, so I've known him for quite a long time. We're in the same scene in like the Northeast and in Newcastle. And he was always very kind of like, always kind of very open that he wanted to work with me when the time is right, sort of thing, and then kind of kept me up to date with what was going on, like when there was cool. He's done some really great remixes and stuff, so he'd kind of keep me up to date with things that were happening, invite me down to his gigs, and we had a friendship through that. And then I just kind of was like, oh look, like I'll kind of come on as like a contact, like a bit of a consultant, so I can give you a bit of advice and help you out. And also it's a good look for me as well because he's an emerging talent and I really feel like he's going to do really well. So like that's quite a good name to have on my roster as well. So then I worked with him for a good few months, and then did a short campaign together, and then worked again where I just helped him out for a few months, and it was about a year. And then he became a client, like a paying client. So I think, and I honestly think that any good publicist is the same. Like even the bigger companies, like I think if they can see some actual like potential and some really strong talent in someone and some real drive in that person, they'll kind of be willing to put that time in and help them out for free.
And out of curiosity, how did you and Elliot like connect? Was it out partying? Was it Instagram DM? What was that like?
I was actually recording for someone. I was doing vocals on someone else's track at like Newcastle College or something. And then I met him and everyone was like, oh, this guy's like a prodigy. Like he's absolutely insane. And then actually I was like, oh, like I'll manage you. I literally have never managed an artist in my life, right? But I was also quite new. And I was like, oh, this will be a good way to start. I was like, I could totally be an artist manager. And then he was like, here's 40 tracks that I've made this week. Like, can you give me feedback? And I was like, absolutely not. I was like, I cannot do this. It's just too much. Like 40 tracks every week. Like he turns music around so fast. Like he once actually finished a track while he was in the middle of a back-to-back set with someone else because he wanted to play it. Absolutely insane. He's actually doing something tomor's He's doing like a masterclass tomorrow.
Yeah, he's doing start to finish in 40 minutes. So
highly
you're going to
recommend you go and see him because he's an absolute. He's brilliant.
I think it's 3:30, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
So where can people find someone, the way you and Elliot kind of like came together, where can they find you?
I know, that's a hard question.
The other version of you.
I know. I guess, it's a hard one actually. I guess things like this, like, you've come here today, like there's so many people to meet, whether it's, and you never know who, when you meet someone, who they're going to help you meet and who's kind of sitting next to you and stuff. And I just think be open to kind of be open to everywhere because there's always an opportunity and you don't know where it's going to come from. So, and also if there's like a local scene, like kind of be switched on to your local scene a little bit, you know, there'll be local DJs, there'll be resident, like there'll be like cool events and stuff happening where those DJs might be at a point where they've got PR, for example, or like, you know, check their like Facebook pages and stuff for like their publicist contacts or manager contacts and stuff like that. I think that's quite a good way because then you know it's going to be someone, it might be someone local in the scene. Another good one is genuinely like, I know obviously I was a terrible artist manager for Elliott, right? But something where it's someone who, you know, like where it's kind of a mutual, you're both helping each other out. Maybe there's someone that you've met, whether it's through like uni or like music, like a music course or like on a day like this where it's like they want to have a job in the music industry and you're an artist wanting to become famous or like have a successful career, help each other out. Like you can be their client and they can be yours and you can just help each other in that sort of respect to kind of grow together. And that means that they've got someone to kind of rep and then you've got someone who's like kind of backing you and in your corner. So
like going on LinkedIn, typing in music journalist and students in your local area.
Basically, yes. No, just start grabbing people off the street and being like, do you want to make music? No, yeah, I think that's, yeah. Okay,
great. So in terms of release campaigns, what do they look like in terms of like a press agent, in terms of a publicist? Do you just write a single press release or do you write particular ones for RA, for different blogs? I keep mentioning RA.
I know, it's like the classic go-to. It's like a trigger every time we say it. No, yeah, so the press release will be the same, which is also because that's kind of the key thing that you're putting out to represent, like to kind of talk about the music. So, you know, that's like, and a bit of advice on press releases as well. So you obviously want to talk about yourself as an artist, if you're writing one yourself. You want to talk about the actual music, maybe a bit of a track description. Some people think that's a bit kind of old school, but there are still so many journalists who don't like actually having to write about the music, that they find it really difficult describing the tracks. So if you can actually give them a description of the tracks, that's really helpful and it's going to actually just help you out so much. I can see people nodding in the audience, so I'm like, yeah, got your back. So yeah, and I think, yeah, so you see then a bit about the music, you know, release date, all that kind of stuff, and a bit about you. So the PR will always kind of be the same, whether I'm sending it to like RA or Mixmag or Data Transmission or Decoded or whatever. But then the way that you might pitch that to them separately for coverage is different. So at the beginning of the campaign, you kind of look at so it's quite complicated, right? So you'll look at you'll listen to the music, think, okay, like where does this artist want their music to be visible? Like where does it fit? And then you start kind of doing your pitches, like your long lead pitches, which are a few weeks before, or if it's like an album, maybe like a couple of months before. So then you'll start doing all those, and that's where you tailor your pitch for each media. You know, someone like RA is going to be a lot more headsy and kind of into like, maybe there's some really cool production behind it. You know, that's the sort of thing that you might want to tailor for RA or for like Attack Mag or someone like that. Whereas if you want something a bit more kind of like snazzy and jazzy and kind of like cool for someone like Mixmag or something, do you know what I mean? So then you'll tailor your pitches. And also that's why it's good with like a publicist will kind of be switched on to what is working for what media as well. It's quite a good idea to have an idea in your head who's covering what, like I said, but you know, that's what you're paying a publicist for. So like, there might be a media who are kind of more focused on like stories as opposed to the actual music, and they're more bothered about like the artist behind. And that's where we come in to kind of be like, okay, yeah, like that's the angle we'll use here. So yes, your overall press release is the same, but then you tailor all your pitches depending on who you're kind of writing to.
And any like tips, because obviously you must have come across a fair few press pitches in your time. Is there anything you think is a direct no to do on a press pick? For example, holding the DJ mixer up when it's not plugged in.
Oh, on a press pick?
Yeah.
Oh my God, press picks are literally the bane of my life. Like I honestly think about them all the time because they're so frustrating. Like I can't stress enough how important like good press shots are. I literally cannot stress it enough. Like that is the thing that people are going to see first. So even if if someone contacts me and they're like, you know, like I've got a really strong year coming up, here's like, here's my SoundCloud link, here's my Facebook, whatever, right? The first thing I'm going to see when I click on those to listen to the music is the press pics. And if they are dreadful, then it's like you've already put yourself in a really bad position, because I'm not going to, you still listen to that music, but you kind of like, you can see straight away what sort of artist it is, or you think you can. Do you know what I mean? So it's so important. Like, you want classy shots, you want timeless shots, you want something where it's not like, obviously it's good to show like your style, like your personal style and stuff, but not something which is really like kind of like trendy and faddy and just is going to look really like out of date in like a couple of months time as well, because you want to have something which you've invested in, because especially when you're starting out, it's quite an expensive thing you've got to pay for, but it is worth getting right. But then again, you could even have like, there's like photography students all over the city, right? Get them to help you out, because then that's something for their portfolio. Look at DJs that you admire, look at the press shots they've done. You know, you want like classy, timeless, it'd be cool if you could do some kind of outside shots, whether it's like kind of industrial spaces or like cool buildings in the background and stuff. But then also like kind of studio pics or something, you know, all you need is like a blank wall somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Horizontal images, because if you want things done digitally, you need to get, are you shaking your head? Horizontal? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know, exactly. So horizontal photos, because whenever I get new press shots from an artist and I'm like, great, you've spent loads of money on these and you've just sent me a load of portrait images that I now have to crop all the time and don't look that great when they're cropped. So when you're obviously getting something published in one of the blogs that you've spent time searching for, getting in touch with, coming up with cool ideas, and then you send them portrait images that they can't crop very well, it's like, well, now there's no image to put out with all the work that you've done. So yes, you want like landscape, horizontal images, a bit of a mix of like black and white and colour ones, which obviously you can just have the same shots done both ways. And nothing where you're doing something too wacky with your face, not sort of like, I'm not going to do any impressions. I was going to there for a second, but I'm not going to. That's what I would say.
I love Elliot Adamson's, to be honest, the way, because is it his bedroom or his like living room where he's like just lying on the floor, but that's where he makes his music, isn't it?
I mean, he's a pretty bad example for this, because he goes against all of the things that I've just said. But I feel like you have an idea whether you can get away with it or not. Do you know what I mean? I think in your heart of hearts, you know if you can get away with it. There's like some old Joris Vaughan shots where he's like mixing, and then there's like, it's like all kitchen appliances. It's like, there's like toasters and like pans, and it's honestly one of the worst things. And it's like, this is literally one of the, I think he's one of the best DJs. Like, I think he's incredible. And it's like, your all press shots are so bad, and they're still on the internet. You can still see them. So if you make it as an amazing artist, and then people are searching for things, they will still find photos that you had from like 6 years ago. And you will, I can promise you there will be some editors who will still publish them, because I still get that now where clients are like quite annoyed because an old photo has been used, even though I've provided the right photo. So it's kind of good nowadays to just get it right from the beginning, because you just don't know when an editor is going to be like, oh, I can't bother to look at that, I'm just going to grab something off Google. And if it's a photo of you mixing with like a toaster, then so be it. You've kind of put it out there. Do you know what I mean?
I really want to see this, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, it's really not hard. If you just Google Joris Vaughan and like press shots, I swear to God, it's one of the first ones that comes up. I could be wrong, but yeah.
I know what I'm doing after this.
I know, seriously.
Anyone want to join me?
Get on your phone tonight.
So on that note, I've always heard it. It's like, is it any PR is good PR, or like bad press is actually good press? Is that actually a thing?
Or any publicity is good publicity?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I'm going to say no.
No.
I don't think so. I mean, I haven't really got any examples of that don't kind of go into the whole social media kind of storm of things that have happened with artists recently or over the last couple of years. But then also actually, I think another thing that's worth mentioning is that one of the really important things about having a publicist isn't just about getting you press, it's about getting you the right press. So it's like, they need to know what's good to say no to. You know, you don't want to just be working with someone who's just like getting you as many interviews and as many features as possible in media that doesn't really suit you, because that isn't going to actually help you out. maybe you've got like a really niche, cool, like kind of different sound, and that would be more suited for some kind of really cool niche indie blogs where you can kind of build up that sort of like tastemaker kind of, that kind of cool crowd. That's a little bit different to if you're an artist, doing like EDM, for example, and it's like, I want to be featured in all these big blogs because they've got like massive reach, but they're not quite as kind of like indie and cool. That was quite a nice way to put it, wasn't it? You know what I mean? They're not as basically they're more mainstream. So it's about kind of managing the artist's expectations, but also kind of making sure that they're getting the right visibility and that you're not just kind of saying yes to certain blogs that might not be right for them. Like I get a lot of requests for Sasha, for example, where we just have to be really careful all the time because his time is so precious, and because when you spend a long time building up someone to be have a certain reputation, you just have to be really careful how you manage that, because you still want to get those like special features. And when they Google, so like I'm pitching Sasha for like Desert Island Discs. I don't know if anyone's a podcast Desert Island Discs fan. Yeah. And if they then Google him and found some like ludicrous kind of interviews that he'd done, then that would come up first maybe, as opposed to some of the like kind of covers he's done. I don't know. It's just being kind of sensible.
I'm guilty for approaching Sasha, I'm not going to lie.
That's totally fine though, but that's how we met.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And then
look where we are today.
Yeah,
You've
and
got
from
me
that,
instead.
Exactly, and then from that I was able to interview like John Mundell because of that. So it is that relationship. And
100%.
From the talk with Denny, he was saying about how it's like important to get people that like you fit well with. And is that the same case with your publicist? You should find someone who like you'd go for a pint with, or does it want to be like very formal? I
think the more kind of informal you can be, I think that's really important. As a publicist, the clients that are kind of really, obviously disclaimer, I work really hard on all my clients, but the ones who like really kind of value your time and appreciate you as a person, like you are going to be more kind of committed to them, whether it's kind of putting in those extra hours or putting in that extra time, or I think having that friendship sort of thing, is a business relationship, but I think having that sort of friendship or that informality is really important as well. Because it makes it more fun for everybody involved, and it means that I can kind of get deeper into what it is about you as an artist that kind of makes you tick, and like what you kind of love or what you want to achieve, and then you can kind of see how I work as well, and that trust is really important as well. Like there has to be kind of trust both ways, I think, and sometimes artists kind of don't realize that they need to trust their publicist, so they're kind of telling you what to do or kind of what's going to work, and it's like, yeah, but I'm the expert, so like, and that's what you're paying me for, so you need to trust me. So I think if you've got that sort of friendly, that thing where you fit well together as like a kind of friendship, that helps a lot in that aspect.
Great. So I've heard we have got a few questions for Lydia, sorry. But before that, I'd like to just make sure everyone knows you've just started your own podcast, which has got the best title ever. Hear this. It's
called Lifting the Lid.
How amazing is that?
With LYD. Yes, thanks for that. Yeah,
no worries.
Yes, go and check that out. I don't even know how you would check that out. I'll go on anchor.fm/lifting the lid. LYD. Thanks.
No worries.
So that launches next week. Yes.
And on that note, a big part of your, like, let's say, life is the eco-activist side of things, sustainability. And I'd love to showcase that for a moment so people can understand what you're doing with Blondish and that kind of bye-bye plastic. That's what it's called, isn't it?
Yeah. So Viv Blondish, she set up, me, her, and a couple others set up Bye Bye Plastic a couple of years ago, about 18 months ago now. So it's basically an eco movement in the scene, and the aim is to remove single-use plastics from the music industry by 2025. It's been absolutely crazy. It's actually just taken the kind of music industry by storm. Like the Grammys have covered it. Like it's been crazy. She's been on like BBC, like TV, like they came out to Ibiza and did like a big feature with her. It's definitely the time to be kind of making all these changes. We see so many disastrous things happening like in the world, like with climate change and stuff. And if we can kind of play a part in that, then I think that's really important. So part of the Bye Bye Plastic movement is the Eco Rider. And it's basically just getting DJs. We've got about 2,000 DJs now signed up for it. And it's just requesting no single-use plastic in your rider. So then obviously there's no like plastic straws, plastic cups, disposable things like that. No plastic bottles. And yeah, so we've got 2,000 DJs signed up for that. So if you are starting out, and this is something that's actually really good to get onto now, you know, if you're going to have like your rider, like you can easily get involved in Bye Bye Plastic. It's not costing you anything. It just means having like a statement on your rider basically saying that you care about the environment and you don't want to use single-use plastic. And then another part of Bye Bye Plastic is we're actually like a foundation and a consultancy. So we're now helping clubs make the transition to being plastic free. So that's happening with a couple of clubs that unfortunately I can't mention just yet, but it will be coming out in the next couple of months.
Because it's interesting, yeah. During that podcast, I didn't actually realise and think about how much plastic is in a rider. You've got the bottles, the cups, everything, and it's such a big part of it. Okay, it's not as many cups as on the dance floor, but it's still a big part of it. It's starting that conversation though with the clubs. Like we've had 3 clubs that have got in touch with us since Eats Everything had his Eco Rider, because on the Eco Rider it basically says if you are passionate about the environment and you care, like you can get in touch with Bye Bye Plastics through this and we'll help you. And some of the consultancy is like totally free, like the actual advice on what products you can use instead is all totally free, because we actually want to encourage those changes. We've had 3 clubs that got in touch with us through Eats Everything, being like, we want to make the transition to plastic free. So you're starting off in the booth, but then that massive movement and from all the DJs together is then taking it across into the dance floor. So yeah, it's really positive. So if anyone wants to join the Eco Rider, plug.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be great to open the floor to questions as you've got the opportunity right now to ask Lydia questions about dance music PR, how you can get supported by blogs, magazines, anyone. So put your hand up and ask away. Who'd like to start?
Oh, look who it is.
Is it about pancakes?
So I just started doing PR properly. I've been a music journalist before, and one of the things that I'm finding difficult is starting the conversation with certain bigger brands. No names, big man. So the advice I was given was you kind of need to go to them and face-to-face have conversations and go out for a beer or drink.
Yeah.
And get the relationship. Have you found that to be the case with you, or have you been a bit more lucky?
Yeah, I think in a dream world, that was literally what I was going to say before you obviously said it. Yeah, like in a dream world, you do kind of want to have some face-to-face time with them. But then I live like in Whitley Bay, which is like on the outskirts of Newcastle, if anyone doesn't know. And it's like, I'm a total like coastal little town gal. So I'm not like popping a mix mag every week, but you do have to kind of find that time when you can invest a bit of time. You know, maybe go down to London for like literally like Thursday, Friday or something, and then literally try and catch up with everyone for a coffee, you know, like do the mix mag, the DJ mag clash, like all the different people in London, and just kind of fit them all in, have a coffee or take them for a beer, try and time it when there's like a mix mag lab or like a DJ mag live stream on, for example, so you can actually get into the office. And that's actually a really good one, because then you can just meet everyone at once. I think once you kind of get in there, then they're receptive to you. I do find that kind of, that's why things like this are really good, you know, like conferences and like summits and stuff, because, you know, you like in 20 minutes of speaking to someone in a more casual environment, or like having a drink or a coffee with them, like you just get to know them so much better, and they remember who you are, even though you might have sent them like 20 emails or something and not had any luck. So if you can find the time to just kind of see it as an investment in like that kind of career, to just nip down, and because also when you contact them and you're like, oh, can I take you out for a beer? Like they're probably not going to say no. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I do think that's the best way to go. But also maybe try changing the way that you're pitching things. Like maybe there's just something that, I don't know, ask other publicists that you're friends with for advice and pictures.
Okay. Any other questions? Go on at the back.
So obviously you mentioned quite a lot about like leading up to release.
Yeah.
But in the time where it's like a downtime, what other ideas do you have to keep it relevant and things like that?
So when you're doing it yourself, you mean, don't you? Yeah. So I guess if you're in between releases and gigs and stuff, things like studio stuff's really good. If you can kind of you could either do that on your socials, like kind of a little tour around your studio, that sort of thing, or the space that you're using. There's also things like you can contact people. There's things like the Fact, like Against the Clock, do this really cool feature where it's like a studio feature, and it's like you make a track in 10 minutes, and it doesn't have to be once again, it's like I was saying about inverted audio. It's like these kind of sites, like kind of grassroots, artists who are kind of emerging and putting their own time and effort in, and that's what they like to see. If you can kind of, if that's still, if it's downtime between releases, you can still be doing cool studio stuff. You can still be doing like some cool like personality stuff. Also a good idea to like put out a mix. You can still approach people about mixes, or put one out on your own SoundCloud and kind of like send that to a few people. You could also do like a free download. Contact some blogs, offer a free download of a track that you've worked on that maybe you weren't happy with totally to place on a label, or you just kind of want to get it out there. So that's quite a good way of getting some extra publicity and visibility while you're kind of in between like other releases.
I think another one's like playlist now with Spotify. Like you could just curate a little playlist that then you could share on socials, tag in other artists, they might share it, and you're staying present and still being within your circle of the genre.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. Yeah. On the sort of note of playlists as well, you can pitch features like if there's a certain type of music that you're into or a certain, if you're really into like weird, like kind of cult classic TV shows or something, and like you could pitch like a kind of such and such as like top like favorite kind of old school TV anthems or something. Like you could pitch some sort of cool list features, because that's timeless. It doesn't have to be connected to something you're releasing. And then like, yeah. Maybe with one of my
Coming
artists.
tomorrow. Graham Farmer presents. Any other questions?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, I think like what we were saying, anything when you were saying about Spotify, about tagging the artist, if there's things that you can do where you can then, and it's the same with other features generally when you're putting feature ideas out there to people, if you can include tags to like the gear or other artists or something, that's great, because then everyone's kind of helping each other out.
And you can monetize that with affiliate links.
Yes, exactly.
Chiching. Any other questions? What I would like to say is the data transmission team are actually located almost at the back there. Hey. So if you are looking for support, they do support a lot of emerging talent in electronic music. So make sure to go and say hello, buy them a beer, keep them happy, and you could build that contact that way. But if anyone hasn't got any other questions, I'd like to give Lydia a big round of applause.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.